Is my child addicted to video games? You're listening to Parenting in the Rain podcast, episode 46.
Welcome to Parenting in the Rain, Insights from the Experts podcast, providing parents all around the world with valuable knowledge to help with the biggies of family life. Here's your host, a registered play therapist, education specialist, parent coach, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Hi there, Jackie Flynn here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Parenting in the Rain podcast, episode 46. I can't believe it. We're going to go to episode 50 with Parenting in the Rain, and then at episode 51, we'll transition into play therapy community, really looking at those therapeutic approaches that help specific issues. So if you like Parenting in the Rain, I'm pretty certain that you'll like play therapy community as well. And play therapy community has grown beyond my wildest dreams. I can't believe we've had over 100,000 downloads since I've started it, and it's growing more and more each day. So thank you for being a part of that, and I love you guys. All right, today's episode is all about parenting kids that love to play video games. Is my kid addicted to video games? I hear that question all the time from parents. I think that the word addiction is thrown around a lot these days, and it's definitely a true word. Addiction is a very real thing, and it can really wreak havoc on lives, family lives, and relationships. But for the sake of this episode, I want to really look at it from a different light. Video game addiction, it's not actually in the diagnostic manual per se. It is in a roundabout way, but it is a very real thing that some families have very big issues that are surrounded by video gaming and all that it has to bring with it. The many hours of consumption each day, the social issues, the emotional issues. So we're going to delve right into that. Sometimes it can really be a big impact on social relationships, play, and we know how play is so important for kids, family relationships, and just getting things done, and sleep. I couldn't even possibly name all of the things that video games can affect. So to steer away from the term addiction on this, which I do believe could be totally appropriate here, I want to go a little bit deeper with the topic. Now, as some of you may know, I'm a hypnotherapist too, and I help people transition from being a smoker to a non-smoker. The verbiage in hypnotherapy is very important. The language around how you word things in your mind, whether it's hypnotherapy or not, really can determine whether you're successful about something or not. So we're going to use that same concept here. Sometimes the word addiction can leave people feeling stuck or just held captive by something larger than them. So for the sake of this, I want to use the word habit, just because habits are so much easier to change, and habits can be changed. And it's very much about perception and mindset, especially with our kids. Now, I just had an episode with Dr. Temple Grandin. If you haven't listened to that yet, it's the episode right before this one. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe I had her on the show. She's amazing. She's perhaps the most famous person with autism spectrum disorder in the world, and she has so much knowledge, and she has helped so many people with her work. In that episode, she spoke about the connection that many kids with autism spectrum disorder have with the video games, and specifically the images on the screen. There was some research done on it. Many children, and adults included, are really playing video games for hours and hours and hours on end, and really letting everything else kind of fall to the wayside. Dr. Grandin recommends limiting their times on the games and involving them in some type of activity where they feel useful and helpful. In that episode, she talks about how she really worked with animals, pigs, and then worked on a farm, and she did some things where she was really good at it, really helpful, and that helped her. Now, at that time, they didn't have video games when she was young, but they had TV, and she said she would have totally been one of those kids that were in front of the TV all hours a day if she was allowed. But her parents, they knew that that wasn't healthy, and they pulled her back from that and got her involved in something where she felt useful and helpful, and it made all the difference. Now, this approach helps really with that thought, and I don't know if you know anybody or have seen this scenario, but sometimes people play so much video games, so many video games that they kind of miss out on their education, on their social piece, their physical health goes, their emotional health goes, and they just don't get that motivation, that responsibility, that independence, and that work ethic that it takes to go out and make it on their own. So that dreaded scenario of having a 29-year-old child on your couch or in the bedroom playing video games while you're cooking for them and still doing their laundry. So this is what we want to avoid, if at all possible, through this information. Not that that's bad, but you do, having an adult child at home isn't necessarily a negative thing. Sometimes it's really necessary. But we really want to strive for independence, responsibility, work ethic, just all of those good character traits that help somebody be able to do things for themselves on their own. So when is video gaming a problem? Well, moderation is the key word here. And another key word, prioritization. Just to be clear, I am not anti-video games. I have definitely played my share of Tetris. I was born in the early 70s, so Tetris was something that came out in the 90s when I was an adolescent, and I really liked it. I remember playing that for a long time, and it was just like on a little gaming machine, nothing complex and fancy what they have today. But they still have Tetris around. I think I just seen that advertised when I went to Best Buy the other day. Okay, so I'm actually pro-parenting wisely when it comes to video gaming. So it's not necessarily that video games are bad. It's that you really need to parent in a way that keeps it healthy. So as a parent that loves to play video games, I totally understand the excitement, the joy, and the skill building aspect of it, and the strategic thinking that goes with it. At Christmas time, getting a video game and thinking, oh, they're going to love this, and then think, oh my goodness, this is consuming my kid. I don't know what I was thinking. So kind of those ups and downs. And I've experienced that all consuming when you just think situations kind of leave you wondering, gosh, was this a good idea? Should we just take this all away and let's be game free in our family and make this all go away? Or how do we wean back without that unimaginable just amount of upset or a disaster scenario where a child is so involved in video games that if you take it totally away, that they have trouble functioning? Well, I don't know if it would be that bad, but it could really rock some people's world, excuse me, if you were to go cold turkey with them. So this is where I recommend an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, it's never too late to improve, but if you do have a little one, I recommend that if you do introduce and allow video games into your child's life, that you definitely do it with moderation and connection. So excessive, unmonitored, or violent video games can really put your child at risk for irritability, avoidance of other healthy activities such as playing and reading and doing chores, spending time with family. It could also put them at risk for obesity because they're not moving around that much. A lot of times it can have issues with their eyesight if they're staring at the screen too long, a number of different things. And a very real concern as well is that it can involve safety. The safety that really includes connecting and communication with strangers. It can be downright scary, especially if you don't know who they're talking to, when they're talking to them, or have any idea that they're even talking to anybody. But what can you do? What is the solution here? It can really be a big dilemma, especially if you have a child that's been playing games for years and years. If you have a 13-year-old kid in the room and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this sounds like good information, but how do I pull back without having like an emotional explosion if I decide to pull the plug? Well, that's a real concern. Many times children play video games excessively. They use that as their emotional regulation technique or their calming strategies. So if you take away the video games 100%, whether it's consequences or some type of, okay, we're making a change in our lifestyle, then not only they upset over something that they really, really connected to, even if it wasn't a healthy thing, but they've actually lost their, in many cases, one thing that helps them calm down. So I recommend not taking it away cold turkey, but weaning it away, and because it can create that void if you take it away all, when you think about it, they really, really love it. They've played it for so many hours. So if you don't have anything to fill that void with, it can be really painful, and they can fill it with even more unhealthy things. So if you wean it back and then provide coping strategies for when things feel upsetting, and just kind of gradually pull back to a healthy place, that's when it can work and be pretty effective without like an earthquake happening in your family unit. So just slowly pulling back to a healthier lifestyle. Our children's brains, and I don't know if you know this fact or not, but this is amazing to me, they're not fully developed until they're about 21 or 24. So they're already working off of limited capacity to calm down. So we want to do everything we can to help them calm. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to Dr. Dan Siegel's Handy Model of the Brain, and it is so good to understand how children's, or not even just children, how people's brain works when they get flooded, what helps and what doesn't help, and how to know when they get flooded and help them to calm down. That video I show to kids, I show to parents, I show to teachers when I do talks around area. Really, really good. It's called Handy Model of the Brain. I just Google it, but I'm going to put a link in the show notes too. Okay, so here are the things that I think are important to keep in mind when making decisions around video gaming. But know that every family is different. Each family has their own set of values, their own rules, their own expectations, their own culture, the way they do things. So the decisions that you make for your child may look totally different than the decisions that your friend makes for her child and that her sister makes for her children or whomever. So that's okay. We're all different. But you want to know your values and your rules and your expectations and your culture and make decisions based on those, not somebody else's. So first thing, be involved. Know what your kid is playing and know what they are doing in the room or on the computer. Be aware. When you're not involved, it's kind of like they have a secret world where they are getting all this connection and activation and stimulation that you don't even know about or have limited information about. And it can get scary because these people can be very influential on our kids. And it's really, I don't need to tell you about all the dangers of the internet. I'm sure you already know. And I have another podcast with Mark Piesel on that. If you kind of go to the earlier days on internet safety, he wrote a book. It's really good. So if you haven't listened to that, that would definitely help with this subject area as well. But I recommend just sit down with your child periodically and play a game with your child. Okay, so that may sound totally absurd because you may be thinking, I don't even have time to take a shower before 11 p.m. and I get up at like 5:30 a.m. and how am I going to play a game again? Well, it's a really big deal. The stakes are high. So just imagine that there are people in your home, because when your child's on the internet and they have connection to it, just imagine that they're going to meet with those people, which in essence they are, virtually. So if they were in your home for real, you probably go make sure your kid was all right, check in, meet these people, see what your kid is doing in there. So it's no different on the computer. You need to be aware. So the stakes are high. It is worth making a priority for. Now, when things get really busy, and time is kind of like an illusion, we have the same amount of time each day, but when the things that really need to get done, they get done. Make this one of those things that really need to get done because it's a safety issue, emotional, physical, relational, all kinds of stuff. And then you know what your child's doing and what they're exposed to, as well as it brings you closer together as a parent and child, that you have that common interest and they get that feeling of my safety is important, my parent cares, I really need to be careful about what I do on here. All kinds of good things come from you really getting involved with your kid in these games. If you're going to allow them to play the games, then it's worthwhile to take the time to be connected. All right, so enough about that. Also, I want to say pay attention to those rating levels. Oh my goodness. I have seen some situations where little ones are playing games that are really, really violent, and it really does have an impact on their behavior and the way that they perceive the world. So be really cognizant of that. I recommend being conservative too. Like if the game says 13, then I forget how it's worded, but don't let them play until they're like 14 or 13 and a half or 13. Don't go under. So some of the games have enhanced graphics these days that can be really activating in terms of behavior. And it does have an effect on your child's perception of normalcy. Kids need to be kids while they are kids. So we don't have to expose them to this stuff. We are the ones that are controlling what comes into the house and what doesn't. The only exception to this is when there's a disagreement between the parents or the caregivers and there's some kind of tension there. So feel free to share this episode with anyone who you feel like could benefit from it. Because sometimes it could seem like, well, why is the parent just being so strict? It's just a game. But it's more than just a game, especially if your child is so involved in it and can have such a great impact on them. Also, place your child's gaming device or their computer, wherever they play the game, in a public area. When parents put the gaming devices or the computers in the room, they are really, really limiting themselves to not really be able to know what the child's playing, when they're playing, how long they're playing for. This is an absolute biggie. A lot of times kids will do differently when they're in a common area. They won't take those risks of connecting with strangers as much or listen to things that have the vulgar language in it as likely. So it's really important to have it in a common area. Also, prioritize. Make sure your child gets the things done that they need to get done before the games are even considered. That may mean chores, and chores are so important to children's development. Helps with their work ethic, their feeling of competency, their confidence. All kinds of good things come out of doing chores. So make sure they have their chores done, their homework done. Make sure that they have some playtime. If they've been sitting in school all day, they need to go outside and play. And if you live in an area where it's hard to get outside, maybe a apartment complex or something like that, have some movement inside. Like do something to where they can move their body. And make sure that they get some type of social, whether it's with you, whether it's with siblings, family, with friends, something that gives them that ability to interact in person. Part of their development, very important. Also, be sure that they get to bed in time. Now, this one seems like a no-brainer, but kids are notorious for saying 10 more minutes, 11 more minutes, or, hey, I'm going to go to bed like 10 minutes after you do, I promise. And then the parent will wake up in the middle of the night and the kid is still on the video game and on a school night. Regardless of whether it's a school night, though, they definitely need that sleep. Because when the sleep deprivation hits, the crankiness meter can shoot up like no other time, regardless of age. It can, shoot up as adults or kids. So this really helps that the gaming's not their entire life. It could be part of their life, but not their entire life. Many kids are at risk of just turning into like a hermit crab and staying in their room for all hours upon end and only coming out when they want food or they can't hold their bathroom break any longer. And some warning signs that your child's playing too much, they come up and you probably know what they are. I'm going to say some here that I have, but I'm sure you can add to it. And if you can, I would love to have you jump in our Facebook group and really kind of share your thoughts on this topic. When we can put our heads together, then we give each other ideas and then everybody benefits. But a warning sign that is a biggie is when your child becomes emotionally explosive when it's time to get off. They have a big tantrum. They start screaming and yelling. Big warning sign. When you wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and you see that your child's still in the game, just like I mentioned before, big warning sign. That's when the red flags go up. And when you see that they're choosing the game over their connection in real life, like family and friends, and it's really starting to consume them and gobble up all their time. And when they don't get enough physical exercise, and that can be especially important because it can really cause their physical health to plummet, and a lot of like the diabetes and obesity and things like that can really creep up on us before we even know it. And there's a few more warning signs that I think of is when there's big family problems and it just kind of gets worse and worse and worse. And as parents, sometimes it's tempting to just let the child play on the video game because when they're not on the video game, it's so hard to function because they're so upset. So if these problems are problems in your home and you have a hard time getting a hold of it, then it is totally appropriate to reach out and find a good therapist. I prefer play therapists. I'm a little biased because I'm a registered play therapist and I see all the amazing work that can be done through play therapy and EMDR therapy, but there is a solution to this problem when it's a problem. So let me know your thoughts. Hop in the Facebook group, Parenting in the Rain community, and just let me know what you have adopted as helpful strategies and what are some of your big concerns still. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're an iTunes user, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. I would love that. I love all your messages. I read them all myself, and you guys are wonderful. Also, I'm on Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and about a gazillion others that I don't even know the name of. I just Googled it, and I found it on all kinds of stuff that I wasn't aware of. You can find the show notes to this at parentingintherain.com. And then when we transition over, check out playtherapycommunity.com. There'll be episodes and show notes there as well. Oh, and on the show notes, I have a link for the labyrinths. I love labyrinths and weighted blankets. So check those out. The labyrinth link, you can get a discount, 20% off. I use mine every day with every session. I have an episode on that too. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care.